Hello, and welcome back to Let's Talk Chicago Bears. Yeah, I know. It's another week. It's Friday. You guys made it. You've made it through another week, working stiffs out there. And our next game is Monday night against Minnesota in Minnesota, and it's probably going to be another embarrassing loss. First of all, I want to thank people for actually still watching my show, considering how bad the Bears are. They're 4-9, and they're playing Minnesota. So, because of what's going on, I've decided to do a little different show today. The show before the game, I always do stats, and I compare, and then I say how they can win, what they should do. Listen, we all know the stats are bad. We're playing an 11-2 team. We're 4-9. It's a Monday night. You know it's going to be bad. I mean, maybe they'll completely surprise us and pull one out. But if that happens, then on Tuesday, when I do the show after the game, will be ecstatic. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to do a little bit different. Before the season started, I had over the summer was thinking about how long I've been a Bears fan, and I've mentioned it many times on this show for all the last 5 years I've been doing this show. And, I've been a fan for 49 years, and I've mentioned it many times, and it'll be 50 next year in 2025. And I was thinking, everything that's been going on, and for 49 years, how bad has it been? So what I did was I started looking at how many coaches, how many winning seasons, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, people who are younger and are Bears fans and, they think it's bad, well, wait till you hear this. And I've been since 1975 a Bears fan, and I've seen a lot. Good and bad, but mostly bad. There's been some good because I lived through the 80s with the Bears and the early 90s and here and there, but the 90s and early 2000s, but still, So I'm calling it Ode to Being a Bears Fan for 45 years. You think you've got it bad, people? So let's get into that, and maybe I'll make you laugh a little. I'll tell a few stories, and then we'll go from there. So this is not my usual show. Yes, we're playing Minnesota again. I said they're 11-2. We're 4-9. Do I need to say any more? So let's do a little bit here. So I became a fan in 1975, which makes it 49 years. I was in high school, and in 1975 is the year the Bears drafted one of the best Bears ever, right up there with Dick Butkus, Walter Payton. I mean, greatest Bears player ever, greatest running back, greatest guy, period. He just was the best. And so, what am I doing here? I'm trying to start my thing is not working. Hello. All right. So I have to usually time myself and my timer is not working for some reason. I don't know what's going on here. So we're going to turn it off. Anyways, so sorry I got distracted. That's what happens when you're my age. You can get distracted so easily. Part of it's age, part of it's pickled. But so anyways, in 1975, this is how it all started for Lynn. So we went to church. We got back from church. 2 TVs in the house, because back then in the 70s, you usually had you had your TV, which was in the family room, and it was a piece of furniture. And my dad always had control of the TV on Sundays because he worked pretty much 6 days a week, 5 to 6 days a week. So, because he owned his own heating and air conditioning company in Illinois. So it was always working. So on Sunday, so he got the TV downstairs, right? And he always watched family classics. Remember those? So my parents had a teeny little 13-inch TV in their room with the rabbit ears, the guys that stood up, right? And I asked my mom, can I go watch TV upstairs in your room? And she's like, sure. So I went upstairs and I just turned on the TV. And, back then we had 5 channels, and whatever channel was left on came on. And it was channel 32, and it was the Bears game. And I'm like, oh well. So I started watching it, and there's this running guy who was just running up and down the field, and I think it was like the second or third or fourth game into the season when I started watching, and it was Walter Payton, number 34, and I was hooked. I was hooked, and all of a sudden that day, my life changed. For the better, not so much, but I became a Bears fan, and little did I know, 49 years later, I'd still be watching them doing a show for 5 years on the internet, which didn't exist back in 1975, and just loving them and having good and bad times with them. But it's been a roller coaster, but it's been a great ride. It really has at the end of the day. It really has. So this is my history of watching the Chicago Bears since 1975. So from 1975 to 1980, they had three coaches. Abe Gibberon. Only old people remember these guys. Jack Pardee and Neil Armstrong. And it's not the Neil Armstrong we know of. It was the coaching Neil Armstrong. And in those 5 years with these coaches, we had 44 wins and 46 losses with 2 playoff games. Okay. Then in 1981 to 1989, we had 2 coaches. And we had Neil Armstrong started the 80s, and then, of course, Ditka came on. And I think he was hired in, 82 or 83? I think it was 82, something like that. And between those 2 coaches, for those 9 years, we had 85 wins with 51 losses. So much better, because the 80s were awesome. Because once in 83... they started, getting players. 84 was a great year because we did go to the playoffs. We lost to San Francisco, but that's okay. And they creamed us in 84, and it was an embarrassing loss. And Ditka, I remember after that game in the playoffs in 84, was pissed because San Francisco ran up the score, and he said, don't worry, we're going to be back next year, and we're going to play you, and we're going to show you. And they did, because I'm almost sure they played San Francisco the next year. Maybe not. I think they did, but yeah. So they came back in 85, and they showed everybody that they were not those losers in that playoff game in 84. So anyways, they won 85 wins with 85 wins with 51 losses from 81 to 1981 to 1989, and there was 9 playoff games and 1 Super Bowl win, we know, because of 85, which was just the best. I mean, yeah, that was a long time ago and stuff, and I'm not one of those people that keeps talking Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. I'm over it. It was great, and it was fun, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but I want a Super Bowl now. I'm not one of those people that lives off of 85. That's not enough for me. So from 1990 to 99, we had Ditka, Wannstedt, and Dick Duran. Yeah. Ditka lasted, I think he got fired, that I didn't look up, but maybe 92, something like that. Early 90s he was fired, and then Dave Wannstedt came in. So between those 9 years, the Bears had 73 wins, and this is when it starts to happen. 73 wins with 87 losses, another where we didn't have more wins than losses. There was 5 playoff games in between there, so things were still going pretty good. Because in the 80s and the 90s, the Bears were winning. They were up and down, but they weren't like they are now. They were keeping track, so they were doing okay. So then we go from 2000 to 2009, 2 coaches only. Dick Duran and then Lovie Smith. And I think Lovie came in 2012. And again, looking good again. We started winning because of Lovie, not Dick Duran. Lovie brought us wins. And we had 81 wins in that span of, 10 years? Yes. And 79 losses, so that's better. 5 playoff games. So we were winning with Lovie. And when Lovie came on, the one thing he said at his first press conferences, he said two things that stood out with me and many Bears fans. We're going to start to beat Green Bay again because we had started that down where in the 80s and 90s we were beating Green Bay. And then by the time Lovey came on in 2012, he said, I will take the Bears we're going to beat Green Bay and we're going to go to the Super Bowl. And he was right on both of them because we started beating Green Bay again. The first season of his head coaching, we beat Green Bay. And it was awesome. And I'm like, oh, wow. And then a few years later in 2006, they went to the Super Bowl. Of course, we lost in that driving rainstorm in Miami. But so there was some good times there, and Lovey did have some things, but then, of course, they let him go. So from 2010 to 2019, so we have, so what are we doing here? Okay, so 2010 to 2019, we had the end of Lovey. He got fired, but he was still a coach in 2010. I forget when he got fired, but and then there was Trestman. So there was Lovie Smith. Okay, this is 2010 to 2019. I am all over the place today. I am so sorry. So head coaches were Lovie Smith, Trestman, John Fox, and Matt Nagy. Yeah, 4. And Trestman, I swear to God that I shouldn't say stuff like this, but without his hat, he was a creepy looking dude. Why they ever hired him, nobody really knew, but they did. So we had 76 wins with 84 losses and 3 playoff games. And 2 of those playoff games, I believe, were with Lovey, and 1 was with Matt Nagy. And so you see the trend starting to go down now again, right? It's going down. Yeah. 4 head coaches in that 9-year span. Then we go to 2020 to 2023, and it really gets bad. Then we have 20 to 24, I should say, because we're 24 now. And we had Nagy and Flus. And we had 24 wins, the 43 losses with 1 playoff game. And that playoff game came in 2018 with Mitchell. That's why I'm wearing Mitchell's jersey today, because we went 12-4 in 2018 with Mitchell his first year. And we were like, oh, this is going to be great, right? This is going to be great. And then 2019, we start, and Mitchell looks completely different than he looked in 2018. And I was on Nagy's ass right away, like, what did you do to him? Why did you? And I blame him. I think Nagy tried to make him, in his second year, a quarterback he wasn't. He didn't let him play the way he played. They didn't call plays to Mitchell's strength. How could you go 12-4 in your first season as a rookie, and then you come back and you're like, shit, you're not good at all? I don't get it. So I blame him. So again, in the Nagy and Flus era from 2020 to 2024, 23 actually, I should say, because we're still in 24. So they won 24 games with 43 losses and 1 playoff game. So now it starts, and it just starts, and it's bad. So if you really paid attention to what I said with these head coaches, there, the 80s, from 84 to mid, the 90s, it was good. We were pretty consistent. We were in and out of the playoffs. It gave you hope each year. You're like, okay, we're coming back, right? And then we kind of let off a little bit, and then we brought Lovey, and we went back up again. And then after Lovey, it just went downhill. Down, 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 down. Yeah. So from 1975 to 2023, the Bears had 383 wins to 390 losses. So, I mean, they lost more than they won. It's not a lot, but still, that is just not good. I mean, come on, guys. And most of those losses have come, a lot of them, in the last 10 years, right? So, and the Bears have had, from 1975 to 2024, 55 quarterbacks. You heard me. 55. This is the most alarming fact of all of it. When I looked it up, I was like, holy crap. No wonder everybody's laughing at us. 55 quarterbacks from 75 to 24. That's incredible. That's 49 years of me watching them, and they've had more quarterbacks than years I've watched them. Just think about that. Yeah. And the Bears have had 13 head coaches from 1975 to 2024, and I named them all. I mean, that is just not good. You get some of these teams that have had, Pittsburgh. They've only had 3 coaches since the 60s. 3 coaches since the 60s. What does that say? Pittsburgh is a very well-run organization. What does that say? I mean, and there's other organizations, but that's the one that stands out for me that have had, they haven't gone through, all those coaches. What did I say it was? Shoot. 13 head coaches. That's just terrible. And 55 starting quarterbacks. Wow. So I was 17 when this all started, and that's when I started watching. And I didn't miss many games back there, but I rarely missed a game. But then in the 80s, I never missed a game. Starting from the 80s on, I missed I could say from the 80s to now, maybe 5 games I missed. Seriously. And I became a full-blown, all-in Chicago Bear fan. And it was awesome because, I started falling in love with them in the 70s when they had Walter Payton, greatest guy ever. And then we saw the 80s and the 90s. And things were great. They were just great. That was a football team. We had, I can't think of his name, but we had a great GM back then who, in the 80s, really, he drafted these guys because free agency didn't exist like it does now. So mostly you got these guys, and they stayed on teams. They didn't go all over, after 3-4 years, right? They stayed on the team. So he drafted Finks. He drafted in the 80s the best players. I mean, this offensive line you see behind me, best offensive line the Bears ever had, he drafted them all. And he just got all these guys in there, and it was awesome. And in the Super Bowl run that year, I was at the Monday night game when Richard Perry scored his first touchdown. Remember back then? And maybe you guys aren't old enough to know, but it was awesome. And we were in the second row of the end zone, which aren't great seats. But of course, that was the old Soldier Field, but still, end zone seats aren't that great unless they're playing in your end zone. And I don't think they had big screens back then. I'm almost sure they didn't. So it wasn't great, but the first time he scored that touchdown, it was in our end zone, and it was on the Monday night game, and we were right there. He scores the touchdown. He slams the ball down, and he's looking at us. It's like, oh, my God, it was awesome. Awesome. But the only bad part was my poor husband, he missed it because it was his turn to go buy beers. Because you could only buy 4 at a time, and there was 4 of us. We went with a couple good friends, and he comes back and he's like, what happened? What's everybody screaming about? And I'm like, oh, honey, Perry just scored a touchdown. And now Perry was on defense, and he was the refrigerator. He was that huge dude, and that's when Ditka started using. He's the one that started it in the NFL, using offensive guys to do that. And I don't know how many he scored that year, but he was in there quite a bit. So it was just so much fun. It was the funnest season to be a Bears fan in 1985. And then we started to believe we are going to the Super Bowl. But I was so superstitious. There was a Minnesota game in the beginning of the season. The Bears were losing, and McMahon was not in. He was kind of banged up, so they kept him out. And we were losing, and Ditka finally, he talked Ditka into letting him play. And he came in, and he brought us all the way back. And my husband was on the phone at this point, and so I took this chair this short captain's chair, not a tall one, but a short one, which wasn't very comfortable, that had come with our place. And I took it and I went right in front of the TV because I wanted to see it and hear it. And he brought us all the way back. So I was like, this chair is lucky. So the remaining of the season, yes, I sat in that chair. Yes, I did. Can you believe it? I sat in that chair. Even when we went to our friend's house, they played Dallas, and I believe they won 44-0 that year in '85, Dallas. And we went to my friend's house to watch it, our really, really good friend's house, Bob and Chris. And I brought the captain's chair with me. I'm not kidding. It was so funny. All our friends were laughing. They're like, "What are you doing?" I go, "I have to sit in this chair. It would be bad luck if I didn't." So I sat in that chair the rest of the season, even though how freaking uncomfortable it was. It was so funny. And then we made it to the playoffs. And nobody wanted to play the Bears in that '85 season because they were scared of them. That was one mean defense. They can't play like that anymore in the NFL, but wow, were they something. And it was really something to see. I mean, they had that team. As I said before, we've never had a quarterback, and some people argue and they say Jim McMahon. I said, well, I think he was a tool, and he didn't stay with the team very long. He kept getting hurt. Anybody could have quarterbacked that team that year. We would have gone to the Super Bowl. I'm sure of it. But our offense was rocking and rolling, no doubt about it. But we went to the playoffs, and this is funny too. My dad, one of his companies offered him 4 tickets to the Rams game, which I believe was the first playoff game they had, and it was in Soldier Field, and he offered my 2 brothers and my sister and me, he said, "Listen, I got 4 tickets. You 4 should go." And they're pretty good tickets. And the 4 of us all said no. My dad could not believe it. He's like, "You don't want to go see them live? You 4 are in love with the Bears." And it was a very cold winter that year. It was the end of December, early January, and it was just freezing in Chicago. And we're all like, no, we want to sit at home in the warmth, have our beer, and watch it on TV. I didn't want to miss a single snap. You know what I mean? Because you can see better on TV. And again, no big screens in Soldier Field back then. So we all stayed home and watched it. I know people to this day are like, "I can't believe you passed up playoff tickets." I said it was too cold and we didn't want to. It was pretty funny. So needless to say, it was a great year. We did go to the Super Bowl in '85, and I had a 2-day hangover. I did. We partied so much fun that day. We had friends over. There was nobody out on the streets. It was crazy. My brothers were in different places. My sister was in a different place, and we were always on the phone with each other, calling each other. And that's when it was still dial phones, You dial in. I'm like, "Did you see that play?" And it was also my husband's birthday that day. So we celebrated the Bears Super Bowl and then his birthday. We were hammered, I won't lie. And I did have a 2-day hangover. And as a matter of fact, at one point, we broke out the champagne when the Super Bowl was over. And I had a champagne, they were plastic, and I had champagne glasses, and I said to my girlfriend, "I've always wanted to do this." So back in the day, back in movies in the 30s and 40s, maybe even the 50s, you would see this in movies, like there would be a dramatic scene, and somebody would be drinking, and to make a point, they'd throw their glass into the fireplace or across the room. And I said to my friend, "I've always wanted to do this." So I finished the champagne, and I whip the glass across the room, and it goes flying past my husband's face, and he gets up and he goes, "Who just threw that glass?" And everybody started laughing and going, "Don't look at me, I didn't do it." And then everybody looks, and I'm standing there, and my friend goes, "Your wife did it." It was hilarious. We laughed so hard. There wasn't anything in the glass, but whatever. So it was just very, very funny. And then through the years, like I said, we saw a lot. We went to, I went to 3 Bears, what do you call them, after the season's over, conference or whatever they have for the weekend, where they have a 3-day thing, and they, everybody comes and you go meet the Bears players, and they were always at the Chicago Hilton, and we went 3 times. We went once with just my husband and my sister and her husband. The next year we took our boys, and then the 3rd year I went with my sister and some friends. So they were always a blast because you could meet. They always had a lot of Bears there. we went, and there was a great story about Big Cat Williams. I don't know if anybody remembers him, but he was on the offensive line and he was huge. So the year we took my boy and my sister's son. We get off the elevator and my son was he did not grow, poor kid. He's average now, but at the time he did not grow until his senior year, really. So he's always teeny and he was always small, but he played football. He was a running back. And so we get off the elevator and there's Big Cat Williams. And we're all looking up. And my son, who was about this tall, and I think he was 7, so he was really small, 7 or 8, and he was playing Pee Wee football. We get off the elevator and we're like, oh, Big Cat. So he's like, hi, guys, and my son goes, I play football. And Big Cat goes, you? And he looks way down at him. He's at Big Cat's knees, and he goes, little man, you play football? Big Cat picks him up with one hand and puts him in the air and twirls him around in the air, and he goes, little man, you're just too small, I don't believe it. And he goes, I'm a running back and I'm good. And he goes, okay, I like it. And he puts him down. He was such a nice guy. It was great. It was a lot of fun. And then later that night they had a dinner for all the Bears. Were sitting roped off in this big conference room, and we were eating dinner and they were eating dinner, and my nephew and my son walked up there, and these guards come up and go, no, you got to get away. And Big Cat goes, no, those two are my friends, let them in. So they lifted up and they left them in, and they got to walk around and talk to all the Bears players who were eating dinner. It was a lot of fun. So there was a lot of fun back in those days, is my point here. I got a million Bear stories, but I'm not going to go into them because I'm probably boring the shit out of you anyways. But I'm just saying, we had some really good times. That's why it was so easy to be a Bears fan, because it was just, each year you were like, okay, sometimes you went to the playoffs, sometimes you didn't, but you weren't 4-9, okay? And when you were supposed to come into a season that you were supposed to have at least a 500 record, and you didn't have this bullshit, what we're going through, coaches not being able to do the clock. You didn't have anything. We just had good football. And every year wasn't great, but they were always promising, and they were always doing the right things until maybe 14 years ago. And I hate to say this, but to date now, we're going to start talking about today. So 14 years, George McCaskey has been the Chicago chairman for the Bears, right? His brother was before that, and he stepped down and he gave it to George. And he's pretty much ruined the reputation of this franchised organization by overseeing the worst era in the team history. 3 of the 5 worst Chicago Bear coaches were hired during his watch. It's the worst winning percentages under his guidance. 3 of the worst 5 coaches the Bears ever had, and the worst winning percentages are under his watch. In effect, McCaskey has demonstrated he cannot lead, and his leadership is pathetic at worst and inept at best. And it's true. It's just been a mess. And reading that about McCaskey, I was like, oh man, doesn't anybody in that family want to run this team? I do not understand. I don't. I really, really don't. And then Poles arrived. Since Poles' arrival less than 3 years ago, 9 Bears coaches have been fired. Or in the case of the former defensive coordinator last year, Alan Williams, who resigned for conduct problems off the field, which I'm sure he was looking at kiddie porn. I'm sure of it. Then 5 other coaches departed for other jobs, with 3 of them exiting to a better job. So we couldn't keep coaches. We had the worst coaches ever. And then Poles, he made some really good trades, for Swift. He made that great trade with Carolina. Yes, that got us Williams, but some of the other bonehead things he's done has just been terrible. I read this. This is a GM from another team. This is his opinion on Flus in that Lions game. A GM was watching that game live, and this is what he said. And how many times have I said stuff like this? He said, I've seen better Pop Warner coaches coaching 10-year-olds who are looking through their ear holes of their helmets. They're so small, who have made better looking decisions and who have made things look smoother. How many times have I said in the last 5-6 games, this is not Pee-wee football, Flus and Chicago Bears, and you have a GM from another team saying the same thing. So this old lady, you know what? I got something. I swear, I am. And another GM from a team said that was difficult to watch. There was just such a lack of organization and situational understanding of that game. It felt like there was just another big mistake in the comedy of errors that had been going on for over a month there. Comedy of errors, again, as I've been saying, were the damn laughing stock of the league. This is an organization that used to be revered, loved, everybody wanted to play for the Chicago Bears. And now the Bears have lost the Bears had lost 32 days earlier. Okay. Sorry. Again, my mind's going faster. So, and then they bring up, and it all started, and I said it, with that terrible game on that final play of the Hail Mary against Washington. Flus again started his bonehead moves, and he allowed them 13 free yards prior, and then chose not to take a timeout to set his defense and get Stevenson back to playing and stop talking to the fans. And we all know what happened, and the Bears have not won a game since. He messed up the Indy game in week, 2 or 3, I can't remember. And he had games last year too. But these comments are from GMs from other teams. Yes. And another GM said, with all the hype the Bears were generating in the offseason, you would have thought they were shoo-ins for the playoffs. How many people out there thought the Bears were going to the playoffs this year? I have several buddies who thought that. Dan, one of you, I know you said they were going all the way. I was sitting at hoping they were going to be 500. And look, I didn't even get that. And that's what I was hoping in. But we did we not go into this season thinking we are going to be better? Because we all drank the Kool-Aid again. Flus had it all sitting there for him, right in front of him. He was given an opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And not only wasn't he great, he was horrible, horrific. You can write a book on it, said another GM. And he's right. He got so many opportunities. He should never have been brought back for the 2024 season. They should have gone out and gotten a real head coach, an offensive mind coach who could help Cabe really become the player that we all know he can be. And I think we can still do it because we did fire Flus. But listen to these things. I mean, can you believe that these other GMs are saying this? I mean, it just broke my heart when I was reading it. And I was just like, oh my God, and it's so point right on, right? And that news conference that the Bears had a few weeks ago after they fired Flus, where it was Warren and Poles. Another GM was saying, in the presentation alone of that press conference, one league source and GM said the contrast between Warren and Poles at that news conference was attention-grabbing. Warren wore a business suit, kicked off the morning with his, what was going to happen. It was an 8-minute opening statement, and he explained, this is what we're doing moving forward, and he gave his word. We know how that is with the Chicago Bears. And then it was Poles' turn. He was in a Navy Bears zip-up sweater. He was very downcast than usual, which was true. And his only opening remarks were delivered with less than commanding tone and only lasted 2 minutes. He looked like a boy that had gotten his favorite toy taken away at that news conference, and I noticed it. His head was hanging, and he's like, and he only said 2 minutes. 2 minutes! That is so not him. And they said, as one source noted, watching that, there was no question to me who was in charge and who will be in charge moving forward. So everyone now saying, okay, Poles is not in charge anymore. Now it's Warren's. It's on Warren's watch. And Poles don't like that. That's not what he signed up for. Oh, well, man, you know what? Look what you put on the field. Somebody has to step up in this organization and do the right thing and take the reins. And you did not do it. Because the few wins you had some bad things. And I didn't want to list all the dumb things he did. He did Venus Jones, 3rd round pick. Terrible. He had more turnovers than touchdowns. Nate Davis, another huge mistake. Claypool, when he got him from Pittsburgh, terrible. So and this year, in my opinion, ignoring the offensive line's problems. The defensive line too, but the offensive line. And I read that somebody was saying he completely ignored the biggest elephant in the room, the offensive line, which is the most important you need to focus on, especially with a rookie quarterback. He let us down in the running game because he signed Swift. And I heard this week a lot of people starting to talk about Swift now, how he's not producing like they thought. And he's not the answer for the running back for the Chicago Bears. Hello? This person has been saying that since what? The beginning of the season? I was not on his bandwagon. I got on it for a minute and I'm off of it again because I say the same thing. He is not the answer. You need power backs like we had with Montgomery. Johnson, he's a good running back, but he's not great, and that's what we need. And fortunately, the draft class for running backs this year, I hear, is very good. I told you last week I saw a young man at Arizona State who I thought was awesome, and he looked like a Chicago Bear, and he's left us down with that. Swift, you know what? He could be the second running back because he can get the short yards and he's an all-purpose guy because he can catch too. And yes, he's good for that, but he cannot be your main running back. That's another problem. So Poles left us, with no offensive line. The running back is terrible. He let Montgomery go. Look at how well he's doing in Detroit, and he might well go to a Super Bowl. So clusterfuck is a nice way to say what's going on with this organization. And I just read to you what other GMs are saying about the coaches. And one GM said, it's not the team everybody wants to go to now. It should have been the coveted place a head coach would want to go with a number 1 picked quarterback. And he's got talent, but people are afraid. They don't want to go there because they're afraid the Bears are going to do the same old bullshit they do every year and not care to win. So it starts with George McCaskey and goes all the way down. So now Warren is stepping in. People are saying, will they fire Poles? I don't know. But something has to be done. Something has to be done because we got a talented quarterback for once in my 49 years. And we need to put the people around him, and it's not that difficult, to bring a winner back to this city. This city deserves and wants a winner. And the loyalty by the fans is just been phenomenal. And you still let us down year in, year out. And now you've become the laughing stock of the league. That is sad. And that's my 49 years. And that is owed to being a Bears fan for 49 years. Take the knife out of my heart. So yeah, that's what I've gone through for 49 years, and this is what's happening with the Chicago Bears. So we're playing Minnesota on Monday night. They're 11-2, as I said. We're 4-9. It just doesn't look good. And the Bears had a walkthrough yesterday. And they'll practice today, tomorrow, and then they travel on Sunday. I don't know if it was a walkthrough or a short practice, but it wasn't a full practice. But these are who did not participate. The Bears are so banged up. Defensive end Dexter Sr. He's about one of the few guys that's really been playing. He leads the team on sacks over Swift, who's hardly, what has he got, 3.5 or something like that, maybe 4, I'm not sure. He's out with a knee. Dexter, please. Running back Swift, a groin. Roschon Johnson, number 23, he's out again with a concussion. He probably won't be back. Defensive back Josh Blackwell, shoulder. And offensive lineman Ryan Bates, concussion. These guys, none of them participated. This is bad. We are so banged up. Now, Trevor Homer was full participation, and he will probably be our running back on Sunday. You know what? Poles, you just fucked that up too. The offensive line and the running back on you 100%. And look what it's done. And bringing back Flus, who should have never come back in the 2024 season. I just read all those things and all the opportunities that guy got. No way. Okay, so it's good he's gone. But now we got to pray that then Warren is going to step up like he said. And I don't care about Poles' feelings. I don't care if his feelings are hurt because Daddy is taking charge again. But that's the way it's got to be, right? It's got to be. We have got to find a real head coach. We can't hire the Trustmans, the John Foxes, the Fluses, the Nagys. We need a coach that's been a head coach before, who knows how to win, who knows how to kick the asses of these grown-ass men who should be playing better than they are. And that's what we need to bring in. I know everybody wants Ben Johnson. I know he's a great offensive coordinator, but that don't make him a head coach. Nagy was a pretty good offensive coordinator and is still with Kansas City. Head coach he wasn't, right? So, Bears, Warren, you've got a fan here for 49 years and starting the next season 50. Yeah, I'll be celebrating 50 years of a Bears fan. And look what I just read you. The only good times were in the 80s and the 90s and then briefly in the 2000s. But it's been bad since I can remember, since 2014 or 2014. It's just been shit for the last 10 years. And enough is enough. So that's my take. I hope maybe you kind of laugh. You're like, well, boy, she's been a fan for 49 years and look what she's gone through. I know. And I'm still a fan. Can you believe it? But little did I know, back in 1975, I would still be doing this. I would be doing a show on the Bears on the internet, which didn't even exist back then, let alone a laptop and all this stuff. And here I am 49 years later, and it's just rock bottom. I don't know what else to say that, the loyalty of our Chicago Bear fans are the best. We are the best fans in the league because of our loyalty. But you know what? People are getting really sick of it. Like my son says, I hate that I love the Bears. And that is a great, great statement. So do I. And it's killing me. And I'm old. And I want to see the Bears go to a Super Bowl so I can watch a Bears win with my son and my grandsons. That's all I ask. And I don't think that's a lot to ask. This is a franchise who should be winning. We have to go back to those days where people are looking at the Bears like, wow. Now, there's an organization, and boy, has that been a long time coming. So, that's it. I mean, and as for Monday night's game, I don't think we're going to win, but you never know because I always say anybody can be beaten on any given Sunday or Monday night or Thursday night. But we'll see. The Bears have really got to get their shit together, and I don't think they're there. I think we need to, get rid of all the coaches, maybe a player or two who don't want to play for the Bears, and go out and get a head coach that's done it before and has won in this league. So that is my story for the last 49 years, people. And you might be saying, why the hell are you still a fan? I know, right? I must be somebody who just likes to be down and out. I don't know, but I am. So anyways, I'm going to stop yapping. So that's the show for today. It's a little bit different. I hope you enjoyed it. You got some information. And we'll see what happens Monday. And I'll see you Tuesday after the Bears game. It'll be later Tuesday in the afternoon or evening when my show releases, because I do watch my grandbabies on Tuesday. So I'm busy that day, so I'll have to do the show after. And I just want to thank you all for watching. I know it's harder and harder to watch these shows, these podcasts or YouTube shows, because, but people I'm still getting views, and thank you, because you know what? You know why I think they're watching me? Because it's this face. A woman's face who looks just like her father on a woman's body. So not fair. But I make you laugh, right? And I do appreciate you watching me, and just keep on watching, because you know what? We've only got a few more games left. Let's have some fun. That's what I'm going to start doing. I probably will be off around the holidays, so I'll let you know. But there's only a few more games left, so of you having to hear me. So keep turning me on. Boom, boom, because this old lady likes it. Yeah. Thank you again. And as always, I leave my show. Love one another. Respect one another. Stop hate. Let's just come together and just be kind to people. It's just so much easier. I was in line at the post office the other day having to pick up my mail, which I'm not going to talk about that horror story. And I was talking to people, and everybody's like, yeah, it is nice. Somebody goes, you're just so nice. And I said, well, thank you. And I was talking to everybody, and I said, because times are tough, and it's just easier to be nice. It gives you less wrinkles, because then you're not always frowning. Although the Bears have had wrinkles and gray hair. And so just be kind for me, for this YouTube host. And again, really, thank you for watching. I hope you continue to watch, but I understand if you can't. But you know what? Who does not want to see this show twice a week? I know. So have a great weekend. You never know, maybe the Bears will completely shock us and win that game. And I don't care if it's by one win, at 1 point. I want to fucking win on Monday. But it's probably not going to happen because it's Monday Night Football. So we're probably going to be embarrassed. So we'll have to see what Joe Buck and Troy Aikman can say about the Bears. I know Troy Aikman will be nicer than Joe Buck about the Bears, but we'll see what happens. So on that note, have a wonderful weekend. Stay warm there in Chicago. I don't think it's that cold, but, we'll see you on Tuesday. Thanks again for watching. And as always, first, go Bears. Don't make me come there. And as always, keep on rocking and rolling from Vegas, baby.